Do not gamble with your money in the market. Hello and welcome to another episode of Moneywise. We help you to make sense of the world of personal finance and investing. Today, I'm going to share with you how you can invest your first $1,000. We'll start with the 3 general rules you should follow when investing, followed by 3 types of stocks you should consider investing in, and finally, 3 investing methods that you can use to get started. The first rule is that you should never invest what you cannot afford to lose. For obvious reasons, you should never risk money that you need for important expenses. But also, you do not wish to be forced out of the investment early because you need the cash. Your objective is to be able to hold on to the investment for the long term until your goals are met. Based on this, you should budget accordingly so that the amount you invest is one that you're comfortable with and also willing to lose. Remember, you cannot control the returns on an investment, but you can control how much risk you are exposed to, and in doing so, limit your potential losses. Secondly, always understand what you are investing in. Never sign investment documents without reading them, and never make assumptions or leave decisions in the hands of others. And also note your investment horizon, that is, the duration that you plan on staying invested. To quote Warren Buffett, risk comes from not knowing what you are doing, so always seek knowledge. Lastly, depending on the size of your portfolio, you should aim to diversify. You can even do this with $1,000, but since this is a smaller amount, the effects won't be as noticeable. However, as your portfolio grows, you should aim for it to be well diversified with quality investments. If you have your portfolio concentrated towards a single stock, sector, or asset type, it will be overly sensitive to shocks that affect that specific investment. Also, as a rule of thumb, the younger you are, the more risk you should be able to take on, as your focus would be on wealth accumulation and acceleration. It is only when you get older that you should pull back and lower your risk, as your focus would shift towards wealth preservation. Take note, there are numerous ways to build your portfolio and several factors to take into account. For this episode, however, we will focus on stocks to give you a starting point. As your portfolio grows, you might consider adding other components to it, such as bonds for a more balanced portfolio, or even adding a hedge against inflation, such as gold, silver, or a cryptocurrency. Right now, let us take a look at the 3 types of stocks that you should have in your portfolio. First, dividend stocks. These are companies that regularly pay out dividends, and some of them have a history of consistently raising dividends regardless of the market climate. These companies are known as dividend kings. There are plenty of notable companies on this list, such as Johnson & Johnson, Coca-Cola, and 3M. Believe it or not, 3M has paid dividends to shareholders without fail for more than 100 years and increased its dividend for 63 consecutive years, while Coca-Cola has increased its dividend for 59 consecutive years. This shows how established and secure these companies are and why they are a good investment. Now, while these companies are fantastic for collecting dividends, they may not always provide superb capital gains. In this regard, you should look to growth stocks. Growth stocks are companies that are expected to grow at a rate that is significantly higher than the average growth rate in the market. Companies such as these usually aim to reinvest all their earnings to accelerate their growth. Hence, growth stocks rarely pay out any dividends. When you invest in growth stocks, your main goal is to achieve capital gains. This is because as the company grows rapidly, their stock price also rises significantly. To put into perspective just how powerful growth stocks can be, if you had invested just $1,000 into Amazon's IPO in 1997 and held until today, you would have approximately $2 million. Today, some examples of growth stocks with potentially stellar returns are companies like Etsy and Teladoc. Lastly, we have what is called blue chip stocks. Blue chip stocks do not necessarily have to be a dividend stock per se, but they tend to have a good history of paying out dividends. These companies are well established, recognized nationally and even internationally. They are ranked amongst industry leaders and provide high quality products and services. Blue chips tend to be highly resilient, being able to weather tough economic conditions. This helps build their reputation as reliable with stable growth. This makes them a generally safe investment. Some examples of blue chip stocks are Apple, McDonald's, and Starbucks. Now, let us look at some investing methods you can use. First, we have a balanced stock portfolio. In this method, your aim would be to invest an equal amount into each of the 3 types of stocks I shared earlier. Remember, you do not have to pick individual stocks, as most investors do not always get the right picks, but you can invest into their respective ETFs. This means 33% each into a dividend stock ETF, a growth stock ETF, and a blue chip ETF. The last 1% could be invested into the ETF you feel has slightly better potential than the other two. Alternatively, you can swap out the blue chip ETF for a good index fund, making this your 34% allocation. With this structure, you get a good feel for how your portfolio can be built, and you have a decent mix of dividend, growth, and blue chip stocks. Going with ETFs or index funds means there is diversification built into your portfolio, as these track a basket of securities instead of individual stocks. Next up, growth and income. With this method, your objective is to match income-producing assets with growth stocks. The idea here is simple. The income-producing assets provide you with regular cash flow, which you reinvest mostly into growth stocks. In this way, you are using assets that focus on providing regular cash flow and then feeding that cash flow into assets that deliver high capital gains. This means a mixed portfolio of only two types: assets like dividend stocks or REITs to provide you regular investment income, and growth stocks to capture high capital gains. Again, this is a great way for you to start, and you can attempt this method on your own if you're willing to research companies and do your homework. But take note, there are already funds and ETFs that focus on this very strategy alone, so you could just go with the ETFs instead of picking your own stocks. Lastly, we have an aggressive portfolio. As the name implies, this method is for those who are willing to take on more risk in exchange for higher rewards. With this method, your focus would be on generating capital gains. And this means you would need to invest mostly in growth stocks, which tend to have more volatility and hence sharper price movements. This method also requires that you actively manage your portfolio instead of passively buying and holding for the long term. After all, you would prefer to lock in any massive gains while prices are up, and in this regard, timing is very important. With an aggressive portfolio, you could even try your hand at picking stocks. However, you should only do so after you have done your own due diligence, research, and you are comfortable with your investment thesis. Do not gamble with your money in the market. Some examples of good stock picking involve observing world events. For example, at the start of the pandemic, investing in companies that make medical supplies or Zoom. To wrap up, we have seen 3 rules, 3 types of stocks, and 3 methods for how you can invest. Remember, these are meant to serve as a guide to help you get started. What is important is that at every step, you always make an informed decision. Never part with what you cannot afford to lose, and never gamble. Thank you for watching another awesome episode of Moneywise. See you soon in the next episode.